The rain-slicked streets of New York City glistened under the streetlights. But the boy on the bench didn't notice. His name was Eli, 17, with eyes that held a storm no one could see. He sat hunched, his hoodie soaked, as if the world had already given up on him. Eli's fingers trembled as he clutched the straps of his backpack, the only thing he hadn't lost in the last 24 hours. His father's voice still echoed in his head sharp. Cruel. Final. Get out. And don't come back until you're fixed. Fixed. The word stung like a slap. A reminder of the moment he'd come out, only to be met with rage instead of love. He'd been wandering Manhattan since dawn. No plan. No home. Just a stubborn spark that refused to let him break. Across the park, Marcus Kane stood under an umbrella, his polished shoes out of place on the muddy path. At 42, he was a billionaire tech mogul, his name synonymous with innovation and cold ambition. But tonight, something about the boy on the bench stopped him mid-stride. Maybe it was the way Eli's shoulders slumped, or the defiance in his jaw despite the defeat in his posture. Marcus didn't know why Coretta never cared, but his feet moved toward the bench before his brain could catch up. Hey, Marcus called softly, his voice cutting through the drizzle. Eli's head snapped up, eyes wary, like a cornered animal. You okay? Eli snorted, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Do I look okay? His voice was sharp, but there was a crack in it. A plea he didn't mean to let slip. Marcus hesitated. He wasn't good with people. Not like this. His life was boardrooms and algorithms, not teenage runaways in Central Park. But something about Eli's face, those sharp cheekbones, the familiar curve of his mouth made his chest tighten. He'd seen that face before. But where? You got a place to go? He asked, stepping closer. Eli's laugh was bitter. Yeah, sure. 5-star hotel. Penthouse suite. He stood, slinging his backpack over his shoulder, ready to bolt. But his eyes lingered on Marcus, curious despite himself. The man didn't look like a creep. Expensive suit. Sure. But his eyes weren't predatory, they were sad. I'm Marcus, he said, offering a hand that Eli didn't take. I've got a place nearby. No strings. Just a dry couch and some food. Eli studied him, torn between survival and suspicion. He'd heard stories rich guys with savior complexes weren't always safe. But the rain was cold, and his stomach growled. Fine, he muttered. But I'm not your charity case. Marcus nodded, leading the way to his sleek black car parked just outside the park. As Eli slid into the leather seat, he caught a glimpse of himself in the side mirror, pale, hollow-eyed, a stranger even to himself. He didn't know why this guy was helping him, but he was too tired to care. The drive to Marcus's penthouse was silent, the city lights blurring past. Eli stole glances at Marcus, whose jaw was tight, like he was wrestling with something unspoken. When they reached the apartment, a sprawling glass-walled space overlooking the skyline, Eli let out a low whistle. You rob banks or something? Marcus smirked, tossing his coat over a chair. Tech. Built an app that runs half the world's data now. He didn't sound proud, just tired. He gestured to the kitchen. There's pizza in the fridge. Help yourself. Eli didn't move. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. Marcus leaned against the counter, his eyes searching Eli's face again. That nagging familiarity hit him harder now, under the bright lights. Maybe I just don't like seeing kids get screwed over by the world, he said, but his voice wavered, like he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Eli grabbed a slice of pizza, eating it standing up, his guard still high. "World's been screwing me over since I was born," he said between bites. "My dad," he stopped, his throat tightening. He wasn't ready to talk about it. Not with this stranger. Marcus didn't push. Instead, he poured himself a whiskey, his hands unsteady. "What's your name?" he asked. Softer now. "Eli," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Eli Carter." The glass slipped from Marcus's hand, shattering on the marble floor. His face went pale, his breath catching like he'd been punched. "Carter," he repeated, his voice hoarse. "Your dad, is he James Carter?" Eli froze, pizza halfway to his mouth. "How the hell do you know that?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He turned away, gripping the counter, his mind racing back 20 years. James Carter. The name was a ghost, a wound that had never healed. The man who'd been his best friend, his first love until he'd chosen hate over them both. Marcus had spent years burying that pain, building an empire to drown it out. But now, staring at Eli, he saw it, James's eyes, James's defiance, staring back at him from his son's face. "He's my father," Eli said, his voice hard. "Kicked me out yesterday when I told him I'm gay." He laughed, a hollow sound. "Guess he's not big on family values." Marcus's heart pounded. He wanted to tell Eli everything, how he'd loved James, how they'd planned a life together before James turned on him, choosing a normal life over their truth. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he said, "You're safe here. For as long as you need." Eli narrowed his eyes, sensing the shift in Marcus's tone. "What's your deal with my dad?" he asked, stepping closer. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe I have," he said quietly. "Get some rest, Eli. We'll talk tomorrow." As Eli disappeared into the guest room, Marcus sank onto the couch, his mind a storm of memories. James's son, here, in his home. A boy who'd been cast out for the same reason Marcus had been, all those years ago. He didn't know if this was fate or cruelty. But one thing was clear, he couldn't let Eli face this alone. Not when he knew exactly how deep that pain cut. The morning sun sliced through the penthouse windows, painting the room in gold. Eli woke on a couch softer than anything he'd ever slept on, his backpack still clutched to his chest. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then it all came rushing back, his father's screams, the cold park bench, Marcus's haunted eyes. He sat up, rubbing sleep from his face, and found Marcus in the kitchen, brewing coffee. The billionaire looked different in the daylight, less polished, more human, with faint lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "Morning," Marcus said, sliding a mug across the counter. "Sleep okay?" Eli shrugged, taking the coffee. "Better than a bench." He studied Marcus, still wary but curious. "You gonna tell me why you freaked out about my dad last night?" Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't dodge the question this time. "I knew him," he said, his voice low. "A long time ago. We went to college together." Eli raised an eyebrow. "That's it? You dropped a glass because you were college buddies?" Marcus hesitated, his fingers tapping the counter. He wasn't ready to spill everything, not yet. "We were close," he said carefully. "Lost touch after he got married. I didn't know he had a son." Eli snorted. "Yeah. Well, He's not exactly Father of the Year. He sipped the coffee, wincing at its bitterness. He's a lawyer now. Big shot in Brooklyn. Thinks being gay is a choice, and I'm just broken. Marcus's chest ached. He remembered James's charm, his laugh, the way they'd stayed up all night dreaming of a future they were too scared to name. He'd been so sure James felt the same until he didn't. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. No one should go through that. Eli looked away, his fingers tightening around the mug. "Whatever. I'm used to it." But his voice cracked, betraying the lie. He was tough, but he was still a kid, and the rejection was a fresh wound. Marcus wanted to say more, to tell Eli he wasn't alone, but his phone buzzed, breaking the moment. A text from his assistant, "Board meeting in an hour. Don't be late." He sighed, glancing at Eli. "I've got to head out. You can stay here. Order food. Whatever you need. My assistant's number is on the fridge if you need anything." Eli's eyes narrowed. "You're just leaving me in your $1 million apartment. What if I rob you blind?" Marcus smirked. "You won't. I trust you." Eli blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever trusted him like that. Not even his own family. "You're weird, man," he muttered. But there was a flicker of warmth in his tone. Marcus grabbed his coat and headed for the door, but paused. "Eli," he said, turning back. "Don't run off. Okay. This place is yours for now." Eli didn't respond, just watched him go, his mind spinning. He wasn't used to kindness without strings. Part of him wanted to bolt, to keep moving before Marcus turned out to be like everyone else. But another part of the part that was tired, scared, and desperate for a reason to stay kept him rooted to the spot. By noon, Eli was restless. The penthouse was too quiet, too perfect. He rummaged through the fridge, found some leftovers, and ate standing up, his eyes wandering to the city skyline. He wondered what Marcus wasn't telling him. The guy knew his dad knew him well enough to look like he'd been punched in the gut last night. There was a story there, and Eli wanted answers. He wandered into the living room, noticing a shelf of old photos. Most were of Marcus with tech moguls or at fancy events. But one caught his eye, a faded Polaroid of two young guys, arms around each other, grinning at a college party. One was clearly Marcus, younger, less guarded. The other, Eli's breath caught. It was his dad, James Carter, 20 years younger, with the same sharp jaw and intense eyes Eli saw in the mirror every day. He flipped the photo over. Scrawled on the back in messy handwriting, "Marcus and James. 2003. Forever." The word hit Eli like a brick. Forever. His dad, who'd called him a disgrace, had a past with this guy. A past that looked close. Too close. Eli's heart raced. He wasn't stupid, knew what that kind of closeness meant. His dad and Marcus had been more than friends. The realization made his stomach twist. Not with disgust, but with a strange mix of anger and hope. If his dad had loved Marcus, then why the hell had he thrown Eli out for being who he was? He was still holding the photo when the door opened. Marcus froze in the doorway, his eyes locking onto the Polaroid. "Where'd you find that?" he asked, his voice tight. Eli held it up, his expression hard. "You and my dad. You weren't just buddies, were you?" Marcus's face paled. He set his briefcase down, moving slowly, like he was stepping into a minefield. "Eli, it's complicated." "Uncomplicated," Eli snapped. You loved him, didn't you? And he loved you back. Marcus sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, he said finally, his voice barely audible. I did. And for a while, I thought he did too. Eli's anger flared. Then why'd he kick me out? If he stopped, the word gay catching in his throat. It didn't make sense. His dad, the man who'd screamed at him, who'd called him unnatural, had loved a man. Marcus looked at him, his eyes heavy with regret. Your dad, he made a choice. He wanted a life that fit. That didn't scare him. He walked away from me, from who he was. I don't know why he did what he did to you, Eli, but I know it's not your fault. Eli's hands shook as he set the photo down. He's a hypocrite, he whispered. He's a goddamn hypocrite. Marcus nodded, his own pain mirrored in Eli's. Maybe. But you're not him. You're stronger than that. Eli didn't know what to say. He felt raw, exposed, like the world had just turned upside down. But for the first time in days, he didn't feel alone. Marcus wasn't just some rich guy playing hero. He got it. He'd been through it too. Stay? Marcus said quietly. We'll figure this out. Together. Eli nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He didn't know what came next. But for now, this was enough. The next few days blurred into a strange rhythm. Eli stayed in Marcus's penthouse, sleeping on the couch, eating takeout, and dodging questions about his plans. Marcus didn't push, but his quiet presence was steady, like an anchor Eli hadn't realized he needed. Still, the Polaroid haunted him, his dad's smile, so different from the man he knew, burned into his mind. Eli spent hours on the balcony, staring at the city, wrestling with questions he couldn't answer. Why had his dad changed? How could someone love a man like Marcus and then turn into that? The hypocrisy gnawed at him, but so did the flicker of hope Marcus had sparked. Maybe he wasn't doomed to repeat his father's mistakes. Marcus, meanwhile, was drowning in his own ghosts. Every time he looked at Eli, he saw James, the James he'd loved, not the one who'd broken him. He wanted to help Eli, but he didn't know how without unearthing his own pain. Work kept him busy, meetings, calls, a company that never slept, but Eli was a constant pull, a reminder of what he'd lost and what he might still save. One evening, Marcus came home to find Eli sketching in a notebook, his pencil moving furiously. Didn't know you were an artist, Marcus said, leaning over to look. The page was filled with intricate design cityscapes, faces, a mix of chaos and beauty. Eli shrugged, closing the notebook. Just something I do. Keeps me sane. Marcus sat across from him, loosening his tie. You're good. Ever think about doing something with it? Eli laughed, but it was hollow. Yeah, sure. Starving artist sounds like a great plan when you're homeless. You're not homeless, Marcus said firmly. Not anymore. Eli looked at him, searching for a catch. Why do you care so much? You don't owe me anything. Marcus leaned back, choosing his words carefully. Because I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong anywhere. I was you once. Eli. Kicked out. Scared. Trying to figure out who I was without anyone to tell me it was okay. Eli's eyes softened. Just for a moment. Your family sucked too. Marcus nodded. My dad thought being gay was a sin. My mom just looked the other way. I made it through because someone gave me a chance. Now I'm giving you one. Eli didn't respond, But the weight of Marcus's words settled over him. For the first time, he felt seen not as a problem, but as a person. The next day, Marcus took Eli to a community center in Brooklyn, a place he funded quietly for queer kids with nowhere else to go. The walls were covered in art. Music spilled from a back room, and teens laughed over board games. Eli hesitated at the door, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "This place is safe," Marcus said. "You can be yourself here." Eli glanced at him, skeptical but curious. Inside, he met Sam, a trans kid with a quick smile who dragged him into a card game. For the first time in weeks, Eli really laughed. Marcus watched from a distance, a pang in his chest. He wanted this for Eli, a place to belong. But he couldn't shake the fear that James would come back into the picture and ruin it all. That night, Eli was quieter, thoughtful. "That place, it's cool," he admitted, picking at his dinner. "Those kids theory like me. They get it." Marcus smiled. "Good. You deserve that." But the peace didn't last. The next morning, Marcus's assistant forwarded an email that stopped him cold. It was from James Carter, addressed to Marcus's company, demanding to know if Eli was with him. "He's my son. You have no right to keep him." The words were clipped, formal, but Marcus could feel the anger behind them. He didn't tell Eli right away. Instead, he called his lawyer, ensuring James couldn't just show up and drag Eli back. But the email was a warning shot. James wasn't done with his son, and Marcus wasn't sure he was ready to face the man who'd shattered him all those years ago. When he finally showed Eli the email, the boy's face darkened. "He doesn't want me back," Eli said, his voice flat. "He just wants control." Marcus nodded, his own anger simmering. "He doesn't get to decide who you are, Eli." "Not anymore." Eli looked at him, his eyes fierce. "Then help me fight him. I'm not going back." Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness, stronger than anything he'd felt in years. "You won't," he promised. "We'll face him together." The air in the penthouse felt heavier after James's email. Eli paced the living room, his sketchbook abandoned, his mind racing. Marcus watched him, torn between shielding him and preparing him for what was coming. James wasn't the type to back down. Marcus knew that better than anyone. "We need a plan," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "Your dad's a lawyer. He'll try to use the system to get to you." Eli stopped pacing, his fists clenched. "He can try. I'm not a kid he can lock in a closet anymore." Marcus nodded, admiring Eli's fire but knowing James's ruthlessness. "You're 17. Legally, he still has power. But we can fight emancipation, restraining orders, whatever it takes." Eli's eyes widened. Emancipation? Like legally cutting him off? "Yeah," Marcus said. "It's not easy, but it's possible. You need to prove you can support yourself, that you're better off without him." Eli sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. "Support myself? I've got nothing, Marcus. No job, no money, just a backpack and some dumb sketches." Marcus sat beside him, his voice steady. "You've got more than you think. And you've got me." Eli looked at him, searching for a lie, but found none. "Why are you doing this? You could just kick me out. Save yourself the hassle." Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Because I walked away from someone once, and I've regretted it every day since. I'm not walking away from you." Eli didn't respond, But his shoulders relaxed. Just a fraction. For the first time, he felt like he had an ally, not just a savior. Over the next few days, Marcus's lawyer, Rachel, became a fixture in the penthouse. She was sharp, no nonsense, and took to Eli immediately. "We've got a strong case," she told them, flipping through documents. "Eli's father has a history of verbal abuse, and there's no record of physical care since he kicked you out. But we need to show you're stable. Eli. School. A job. A plan." Eli groaned. "School? I haven't been in weeks." Marcus jumped in. "I'll cover tuition for a private school. Online. If you want. And I can get you an internship at my company, graphic design. Coding. Whatever you're into." Eli stared at him. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Marcus said. "You're smart. Eli. I've seen your sketches. You've got talent. Let's use it." For the first time, Eli felt a spark of hope, not just survival, but a future. He agreed to the plan, throwing himself into online classes and an internship at Marcus's tech firm. He was good. Two, his designs caught the eye of Marcus's creative team, earning him respect he'd never known. But James wasn't silent. Another email came, this time to Eli directly, forwarded from an old school account. "You're making a mistake. Elijah. Come home, and we'll fix this. You don't belong with that man." The words dripped with condescension, and Eli's hands shook as he read them. "He thinks I'm a disease," Eli said, tossing the phone to Marcus. "He's never going to change." Marcus read the email, his jaw tight. He remembered James's charm turning cold, his promises crumbling when the world got too real. "He's wrong," Marcus said, "and we'll prove it." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He sat on the balcony, sketching Marcus's face from memory, the lines of his jaw, the sadness in his eyes. He didn't know why he was drawing him, only that it felt right. When Marcus found him there, he didn't say anything, just sat beside him, their silence comfortable. "You ever think about confronting him?" Eli asked suddenly. "My dad. I mean, telling him how much he screwed you over." Marcus exhaled, staring at the city lights. "Every day? But I didn't think I'd ever get the chance." Eli looked at him, his voice quiet but firm. "Maybe you will. Maybe we both will." The idea hung between them, heavy with possibility. Marcus didn't know if he was ready to face James. But for Eli, he'd try. They were in this together now, bound by a past neither could escape and a future they were just starting to build. Weeks passed, and Eli settled into a fragile routine. Schoolwork piled up, but he aced his classes, driven by a need to prove himself. At Marcus's company, his internship turned heads. His designs were bold, raw, a reflection of the chaos he carried inside. Marcus watched him thrive, pride mixing with a growing fear. James was still out there, a shadow waiting to strike. One afternoon, Rachel called with news. James filed a petition for custody, she said, her voice tense. "He's claiming you're harboring a runaway. Marcus. He wants Eli back under his roof." Marcus's blood ran cold. He kicked him out. He can't just change his mind. "He's a lawyer," Rachel said. "He knows how to spin a story. He's saying Eli's unstable, that you're influencing him." Marcus glanced at Eli, who was sketching at the kitchen counter, oblivious to the call. "What's our move?" "We push for emancipation," Rachel said. But we need to be ready for a fight. James's good'll dig up anything he can to discredit you. Marcus hung up, his mind racing. He hadn't told Eli about his past with James, not the full story. The love, the betrayal, the years of silence. He didn't want to burden him. But if James was coming for them, the truth might be their only weapon. That night, Marcus sat Eli down. "Your dad's trying to get you back," he said, watching Eli's face harden. "He's taking it to court." Eli's pencil snapped in his hand. "He doesn't want me. He wants to win." Marcus nodded. "I know. But we're not letting him. Rachel's working on emancipation papers. But there's something you need to know first." Eli's eyes narrowed. "What?" Marcus took a deep breath. The words heavy. "Your dad and I, we were in love. In college. We planned a life together. But he got scared. He chose a normal life, married your mom. Had you? I didn't see him again until you showed up." Eli stared at him, his face a mix of shock and betrayal. "You're telling me my dad's gay? And he still kicked me out?" "I don't know if he's gay or bi or just lost," Marcus said. "But he made his choice. And it wasn't me. Or you. That's on him. Eli. Not us." Eli stood, pacing, his hands shaking. "All this time, he's been lying. To me. To Mom. To himself. And I'm the one paying for it." Marcus stood too, his voice steady. "You're not paying for it anymore. We're fighting this. Together." Eli stopped, his eyes fierce. "I want to face him. In court. Wherever. I want him to look me in the eye and tell me why." Marcus's heart ached. But he nodded. "Okay. We'll make it happen." The next week was a blur of legal prep. Rachel coached Eli on what to say, how to stay calm. Marcus hired investigators to dig into James's past, hoping to find leverage. They uncovered Whisper's old colleagues who'd seen James's temper, a few who'd suspected his secret. It wasn't much, but it was something. The night before the first hearing, Eli couldn't sleep. He found Marcus on the balcony, staring at the city. "You nervous?" Eli asked, sitting beside him. Marcus nodded. "Terrified. Not just for you, for me. Seeing him again, it's like opening a wound." Eli looked at him, his voice soft. "You still love him, don't you?" Marcus's throat tightened. "I love who he was. Not who he is now." Eli nodded, understanding more than he wanted to. "I'm glad you found me, Marcus. Even if it hurts." Marcus smiled, his eyes stinging. "Me too, kid." They sat in silence, the city humming below, both bracing for the storm ahead. James was coming, and with him, a reckoning neither could avoid. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, its stone walls cold and unyielding. Eli sat beside Marcus in the waiting area, his leg bouncing, his sketchbook clutched like a shield. Rachel was nearby, reviewing notes, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension radiating from both of them. "You ready?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Eli nodded, but his eyes betrayed his fear. "I just want him to see me. Really see me." Marcus squeezed his shoulder. "He will. And he'll see you're not backing down." When they entered the courtroom, Eli's breath caught. There he was, James Carter, in a crisp suit, his face a mask of control. But his eyes, those eyes Eli had inherited, flickered with something guilt. Maybe. Or defiance. He didn't look at Eli. Not yet. The judge, a stern woman with gray hair, called the session to order. James's lawyer went first, painting Eli as a troubled teen who'd run away, manipulated by a billionaire with an agenda. Marcus's jaw clenched. But Rachel was ready, countering with evidence of James's verbal abuse and Eli's progress school. Work. Stability. Then it was Eli's turn to speak. He stood, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger. My dad kicked me out because I'm gay, he said, staring straight at James. He told me I was broken, that I didn't belong. But I'm not the one who's broken. He is. The courtroom was silent, the weight of Eli's words hanging in the air. James's face twitched, but he still wouldn't meet Eli's eyes. Marcus watched, his heart pounding, remembering the boy he'd loved who'd never had this kind of courage. The judge asked Eli questions about his life, his plans, his time with Marcus. He answered honestly, his voice raw but steady. When he sat down, Marcus leaned over, whispering, "You did good." But James wasn't done. His lawyer called him to the stand, and he spun a story of a concerned father trying to save his son. Elijah's confused, James said, his voice smooth. He needs guidance, not a stranger's money. Marcus couldn't stay silent. Against Rachel's advice, he stood. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge nodded, curious. Marcus faced James, his voice steady but laced with pain. James, you threw your son out for being who he is, the same way you threw me away 20 years ago. You don't get to call that love. The room gasped. James's face went pale, his composure cracking. That's irrelevant, he stammered. But the judge raised a hand. It's relevant if it shows a pattern, she said. Mr. Carter, did you have a relationship with Mr. Kane? James's silence was deafening. Finally, he said, we were friends. That's all. Eli stood, his voice cutting through the room. Stop lying. Dad, I saw the picture. You and Marcus. In love. You're a hypocrite. The judge called for order. But the damage was done. James's mask was slipping, his shame exposed. The hearing ended with no ruling. But the tide had turned. Rachel was optimistic James's credibility was shot. Outside, Eli was shaking, adrenaline fading. Marcus pulled him into a hug, something he hadn't done before. You were incredible, he said. Eli clung to him, tears in his eyes. He didn't even look at me. Not really. Marcus's heart broke. He will. Eli. One day, he'll have to. That night, they went back to the penthouse, exhausted but united. Eli sketched in silence, his lines softer now, less angry. Marcus watched, wondering if he'd ever get the chance to confront James himself, not in court, but face to face, to finally let go of the past. The weeks after the hearing were a strange limbo. The judge's ruling was pending, but Eli felt lighter, like he'd shed a weight he'd carried his whole life. He threw himself into his internship, designing logos that made Marcus's team buzz with excitement. School was harder, but he kept up, driven by a promise to himself. He wouldn't let his dad define him. Marcus, though, was restless. The courtroom had stirred up memories he'd buried, nights with James, their dreams, their fights. He wanted closure, but he didn't know how to get it without hurting Eli. He kept busy, funding new programs at the community center, But James's shadow lingered. One evening, Eli came home from the center. His face lit up. "Sam and I are working on a mural," he said, tossing his backpack down. "For the center. It's going to be huge, kids like us being proud." Marcus smiled, his chest warm. "That's amazing. Eli, you're building something real." Eli grinned, then hesitated. "You should come see it. Meet Sam. They're kinda special." Marcus raised an eyebrow, catching the blush on Eli's face. "Special? Huh. You got a crush?" Eli laughed, shoving him playfully. "Shut up. Maybe." It was the first time Marcus had seen Eli this light, this hopeful. It made the next blow hit harder. Rachel called the next morning. "James wants to settle," she said. "He'll drop the custody fight if Eli agrees to meet him. One conversation. Supervised." Eli's face darkened when Marcus told him. "He just wants to save face," he said. "But I need to do this. I need to know why." Marcus nodded, though his stomach twisted. "I'll be there. Whatever you need." The meeting was set at a neutral office. Rachel and a mediator present. James sat across from Eli, his face unreadable. Eli didn't flinch, but his hands gripped the chair arms tight. "Why'd you do it?" Eli asked, his voice steady. "Why'd you kick me out, knowing what it's like to hide who you are?" James's jaw tightened. "I wanted better for you. A normal life." Eli laughed, sharp and bitter. "Normal? You mean a lie? Like the one you're living?" James flinched, but didn't deny it. "I made choices to survive," he said. "You're young. You don't understand." "I understand you're a coward," Eli said, his voice breaking. "You loved Marcus, and you walked away. You had me, and you threw me out. That's not survival. That's shame." James looked away, his hands trembling. "I'm trying to fix this, Elijah." "Then start by letting me go," Eli said. "Sign the papers. Let me be free." James didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. The mediator ended the meeting, and Eli walked out, head high. Marcus followed, his heart heavy but proud. Eli was stronger than he'd ever been. That night, Eli showed Marcus his sketch for the mural, a vibrant scene of queer kids, hand in hand, faces full of hope. "This is for us," he said. "For everyone who's been told they're not enough." Marcus's eyes stung. "It's beautiful. Eli. You're beautiful." Eli smiled, a real smile. And for a moment, the world felt right. The judge's ruling came a month later, emancipation granted. Eli was free, legally his own person. He stood in the penthouse, holding the papers, his hands shaking not with fear, but with relief. Marcus watched, a quiet pride in his chest. They'd done it together. James didn't fight the ruling. After the meeting, he'd gone silent, retreating into whatever life he'd built on lies. Marcus didn't know if he'd ever face his truth, but it didn't matter anymore. Eli was safe, and that was enough. Eli moved into his own apartment, a small place Marcus helped him rent near the community center. He kept working at the tech firm, his designs now a staple of their branding. The mural he and Sam painted became a beacon, drawing queer kids from across the city. Eli and Sam grew closer, their friendship blossoming into something more tentative but real. Marcus, too, found peace. He started visiting the community center more, mentoring kids like Eli, sharing his story. One evening, he found an old letter from James, tucked away in a box. "I'm sorry," it read, written years ago but never sent. Marcus burned it, letting the ashes scatter in the wind. He didn't need James's apologies anymore. He had Eli, the center, a purpose. On the anniversary of the day they met, Eli invited Marcus to the park where it all began. The bench was still there, weathered but standing. They sat together, the city alive around them. "You changed my life," Eli said, his voice soft. "I was lost. And you saw me." Marcus smiled, his heart full. "You changed mine too, kid. You reminded me what matters." They sat in silence, watching the sunset. Two survivors bound by pain and hope. The world wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and they'd fight for it together. Always.